All right, let's just jump right in. Have you ever looked at your savings account and just felt like becoming a millionaire is, impossibly far away? Well, today we're going to shatter some of the biggest myths about building wealth, and we're going to reveal some surprising math that shows you might be a lot closer than you actually think. So let's start with a really simple question. Your goal is $1 million. You've just hit your first 100,000. So how far along are you? I mean, your brain just screams 10%, right? It feels like simple, logical math.
And look, you'd be totally right if we were talking about, say, stacking bricks. But we're not. That kind of straight-line thinking is exactly why so many people get discouraged and just give up on investing. See, building wealth, it follows a completely different set of rules, and it's powered by a force that Albert Einstein himself supposedly called the eighth wonder of the world.
So here it is, the big reveal. When you hit that first $100,000, you are not 1/10 of the way to $1 million. You are already 1/3 of the way there. Yeah, I know. That sounds completely insane, but stick with me, because if you can really grasp this one concept, it could change your entire financial future. Okay, so it all starts with what is, by far, the toughest part of the entire journey, the grind to get to your first $100,000. This is the foundation. Everything else is built on top of this. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The legendary investor Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's right-hand man, famously said that the first 100K is the absolute hardest. And there's a very clear mathematical reason why he was spot on. Okay, so look at this chart. It tells you exactly who's doing all the work at the beginning. To get to that first 100K, you personally have to do most of the heavy lifting. If we assume you're investing consistently, something like 62 grand of that first 100 comes straight out of your own pocket. Yeah, your money's working a little, but believe me, you are working a whole lot harder. It's like trying to push a giant boulder up a very steep hill.
And this timeline, man, it really shows you just how long that initial push takes. To get from zero to your first 100,000, even with consistent weekly investing, it could take you around 12 years. 12! That feels like an eternity, right? And that's exactly the phase where most people lose faith, because the progress feels just painfully slow.
But then, look what happens. Once you get that boulder to the top of the hill, momentum starts to take over. Check this out. The second $100,000 takes only 6 more years. Half the time. This is compound interest waking up from its nap and finally starting to do the heavy lifting for you. Your contributions haven't changed, but the growth just starts to explode. So, you've pushed through the grind, and now you're getting close to that next big milestone. $250,000. This feels amazing, it feels like real progress, but it is actually the most psychologically dangerous phase of the entire journey. This is when your portfolio just starts doing things that blow your mind. You might wake up one morning, you check your account, and you see a number like this. You've made more money in a single day than you used to make in an entire month. Your wealth suddenly stops feeling like some abstract idea and starts feeling very, very real. And that feeling, that really intoxicating feeling of being almost wealthy, that's the trap. That is precisely where the danger begins. It's that point where you have just enough money to make really, really expensive mistakes, but not quite enough to recover from them easily. At this stage, you've got 3 new enemies that show up to the party. First, you've got the illusion of arrival. That's when you feel like you've made it and you deserve to start spending big. Second is the overconfidence monster, where a few market wins convince you you're the next Warren Buffett. And third, the comparison trap, where you see other people with more and start taking really dumb risks just to try and catch up. Let's make this real. Let's look at that first trap, the illusion of arrival. You're feeling wealthy, so you go out and buy the $87,000 truck instead of the sensible sedan. The difference in the monthly payment might not seem like a huge deal, but look at the opportunity cost. Over 7 years, that single decision could cost you over $73,000 in lost investment growth. That's how feeling wealthy before you are wealthy just completely destroys your future.
But if you can just navigate that dangerous middle ground, you eventually reach a point I like to call escape velocity. This is the $1 million mark, and this is where your relationship with money and work is fundamentally and permanently transformed.
And what this shows is a fundamental shift. A shift in who you are. You stop being a saver, someone who has to trade their precious time for money, and you become a capital owner. Now your capital, your investments, becomes your primary source of income. Your job, that becomes optional. Your whole focus shifts from just piling up money to preserving what you have.
So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, a $1 million portfolio earning a pretty conservative 7% annual return can generate this much passive income. Every single year, $70,000.
Let's put that number into perspective for a second. That is more than the median household in the entire United States earns from going to work every day. Your investments have now become a full-time employee, working for you 24/7, generating an entire lifestyle's worth of income while you sleep. This, right here, is what real financial freedom feels like.
But wait, there's actually another level to this game. Once you've achieved wealth, the focus shifts to preservation. And that means you have to understand the powerful strategies the wealthy use to protect their capital from its single biggest predator, taxes.
So check this out. This is the strategy the super rich use. It sounds kind of morbid, but it's called buy, borrow, die. It's brilliant in its simplicity. Step 1, you buy assets that grow in value but don't kick off a lot of taxable income, like growth stocks. Step 2, instead of selling those assets and getting hit with taxes, you borrow against them. A loan is an income, so the cash is tax-free. And then, well, the final step is in the name.
Let's walk through an example. We'll call her Maria. She invests her first $1 million. Over 30 years, it grows to $8 million. Now, during her life, she borrows millions against that portfolio to live on, and she pays zero tax. When she passes away, her portfolio is worth $8 million, but she has $4 million in loans against it. Her heirs simply sell half the assets to pay off the loans, and they inherit the remaining $4 million, with a total tax bill of zero. So, how is that even possible?
It all comes down to this one little-known rule in the tax code called the stepped-up basis. Basically, when you inherit an asset, its cost for tax purposes steps up to whatever it was worth on the day the person died. This means all those capital gains that piled up during that person's lifetime, they just get completely erased. Poof! For Maria's kids, it's as if she bought the assets for $8 million just yesterday. It's the legal loophole that makes the whole strategy work.
So you see, building and, more importantly, keeping real wealth isn't just about working hard or having a high income. It's about understanding the different stages of the journey and the different rules that apply at each level, from that initial painful grind all the way to the final endgame. So the real question for you is, which rule will you focus on mastering first?